We got breaking news from the Jets. They have fired general manager Joe Douglas, according to our Jonathan Jones. He's been the GM there since 2019. It was in the final year of his contract. New York has not made the playoffs at all under Douglas, tied for the second worst record in the NFL since 2019, and 3-8 this season. All right, we've got Kyle Long, we've got Pete Prisco here. Pete, I mean, they fired the head coach, they changed the offensive coordinator, they keep losing games, so now the GM's out.
I wonder how Aaron Rodgers made that decision. Did he call him into the office and fire him? How did he fire him?
Come take a seat in my locker for a second, Joe.
Hey, Joe, would you come bring your playbook and come see me at my locker? That's fantastic. Look, this is a disaster. They're going to make changes. They're getting ahead of it a little bit, but what does it do to make the change during the season? Now you're ahead of, if Jacksonville fires Trent Baalke, you're ahead of the curve a little bit. I don't know, but they were going to make the change after the season. They're just getting ahead of it a little bit.
Yeah, it just seems like one bad decision after another. And I've known Joe Douglas for a long time. He was in Chicago when I was a rookie. He was there upstairs, and I thought he made good decisions. Obviously, such good decisions that he was thrust into this position. But you hate to see this for Joe Douglas. Obviously, that media storm in New York, in conjunction with a guy like Aaron Rodgers and the lack of success that they've had, people got to pay. Heads are going to roll. That's just the way it goes in the National Football League. Joe Douglas, to your point, is the first domino to fall. There will be many more.
Well, go ahead.
What else is coming? I mean, you talk about the other dominoes. What else is going to be done in New York?
Well, I don't think they stick with their interim head coach.
That's clear and obvious.
I don't think Aaron Rodgers will be there next year. I feel like they're going to start making some real decisions about who's going to lead this football team, who the quarterback's going to be, whether they're going to try to pursue somebody in the free agent market or they're going to go after somebody in the draft. Obviously, anything can go right now because of the state of affairs for the New York Jets.
The problem is you can't start thinking about any of that until you actually fill that job and fill the head coaching position. That's how if you're sitting there, you got to get. That's why they're getting a head start on this, is to try and figure out who the next GM is going to be, who the next coach is going to be. It's clear Jeff Ulbrich won't be the long-term answer as the head coach, so you got to start figuring out, get a GM, get him in concert with the head coach, and bring them in together.
Do you agree with Kyle that they're going to move on from Aaron Rodgers?
I don't know if they're going to move on from Aaron Rodgers. I think Aaron Rodgers might move on from that.
That's essentially what I'm saying. Aaron Rodgers is checked out. The twinkle is gone from his eye as it pertains for his love of football. You can see it out there. I mean, we've watched him play for so long. That's not the same guy. Not only is he 40, he's just tired of getting hit so much. The guy's just not in. He's not in it. And you've seen it before with players that stay past their expiration date in terms of being in love with the game. And I just feel like so much has transpired over the past 2 years, so much media involvement, so many question marks in New York. Aaron's just probably tired of it. He's probably done. And I wonder what happens. Does he go completely missing? Is he in the media still next year? Or is he just off the radar completely?
No, I think he would go into the media. But here's the other thing about it. When it goes, it goes. And it looks like his went. And at times, it just goes. And this is a guy, I remember having a conversation with him at his locker once. He told me, 40's now the new 30 playing in the NFL. Well, clearly 40 for him isn't the 30 because he's not the same player. He just doesn't look the same. He doesn't look, you're right, he doesn't have that fire. He doesn't have that confidence. And I think the injuries and everything have taken a toll on him to the point where he just can't do it the way he used to be able to do it. And I think he's frustrated by it.
You used to watch this guy play, and he would rip your heart out as an opposing team. And you could see from the way that he wore his heart on his sleeve, the celebrations, the team involvement. Guys love him. Guys rally around him, and he can make plays. We're at the point in the career where he just doesn't have that same aura, as the kids would say. He does not have that aura. You can't manufacture it. Once it's gone, it's gone.
What was the biggest mistake Joe Douglas made in his time there, 5 years? Can you call the Aaron Rodgers thing a mistake? I mean, you had to try it, right?
You had to try it. I mean, the biggest mistake was drafting Zach Wilson where he drafted him. That's the biggest mistake. They had to go get Aaron Rodgers because they made the mistake.
It was a beautiful pro day. Zach Wilson had a great pro day, though.
That's the mistake. When you bust out on quarterbacks at the top of the draft, usually it's the undoing of the general manager. And you know what? The 49ers got away with it because they got lucky on Brock Purdy. But most of the time, it's going to be what actually gets the GM fired.
All right, so the Jets fire their head coach, change their offensive play caller, now fire their general manager. Joe Douglas is out, according to our Jonathan Jones. We are your place here at HQ for NFL all season, every season. It's all here, 365. News, highlights, scores, and obviously breaking news like we have right now. More on this coming up. Continuing our breaking news coverage from the NFL, where the Jets have fired General Manager Joe Douglas, according to our Jonathan Jones. He's been the GM there since 2019, and they have the second worst record in the NFL in that time frame. He was in the final year of his contract, and again, the Jets are going to miss out on the postseason. They have a 13-year drought that's going to continue. Just 30-64 during Douglas's tenure. Of course, the big move was to bring in Aaron Rodgers, and that has not worked. Let's bring in our lead NFL insider, Jonathan Jones, with some surprising news on this day for the Jets. And Jets fans are probably, maybe they knew this was coming eventually, but scrambling now to, okay, where do we go next? Who are some names, JJ, that they might be Googling as potential replacements?
Well, before we get to the names, let's talk about why this ever even happened, right? I mean, we're talking about someone, as we just showed, who had one of the worst records in the NFL. Joe Douglas was on an expiring contract, so it is not a surprise that Joe Douglas is not going to be the general manager for the New York Jets in 2025. It is a surprise, a slight surprise, that it has been done on Tuesday afternoon. I just had an assistant general manager text me as soon as the news broke saying, why fire him now? Because there are things that a GM can do even though the team is out of the postseason race, right? And as you scroll through the staff page, there's not an obvious replacement for Joe Douglas as an interim. Look, you're talking about guys on futures contracts. You're talking about, as injuries continue. There's still 6 games left in this season for the Jets. I understand it is a bye week, but firing a coach on a bye week is different than firing a personnel executive on a bye week. And so timing a little bit odd, but Woody Johnson, of course, sort of moving forward, and that's a whole other thing, Chris, that we can talk about the future of the Jets, all the decisions that are going to have to be made from this decision tree, because now they are going to be hiring a general manager. Now they are going to be hiring a head coach. Do you hire one and then the other? Is the GM part of the head coach search? Do you want to hire both at the same time? Are you hiring a search firm? All of these things are now starting to become open for the Jets with 7 weeks left in the regular season.
And just spoke with Kyle Long and Pete Prisco, and they believe that Aaron Rodgers is probably not going to be back next season. What does that look like right now? What's the future for him and the decisions that he and the Jets need to make?
So here's how this has to go if you are the Jets. First of all, you have to know who the boss is, okay? So that's number one. Woody Johnson is the owner of this team. He is over the day-to-day operations of this team. But in the last Donald Trump administration, he was the United States ambassador to the United Kingdom. It has not yet been announced if he is going to be that during this second administration, but if he is, he has to relinquish his day job as the owner of the Jets. Not sell the team, of course, but his brother Christopher Johnson would then be the boss. You need to know, any general manager, any head coach walking into the New York Jets facility for an interview needs to know who their boss is going to be. So that's a question that needs answering, and hopefully for folks will be answered in the coming weeks. Then, who's the GM, who's the head coach? If you are going to hire a first-time head coach, right, some offensive guru, are you really going to pair that coach with Aaron Rodgers at 41 years old in the last year of his contract? I find that hard to believe. Sources I spoke with have found that hard to believe on a story that I wrote for CBSSports.com 2 weeks ago, anticipating this eventual move. And then lastly, Aaron Rodgers' contract. Whoever the head coach, whoever the general manager ultimately will be, that will be determined end of January, early February, maybe even just Super Bowl, so you're talking about mid-February. You don't have to make a decision on Aaron Rodgers then, because he has an option bonus in his contract, so they can push this decision for a while. But at the start of free agency in mid-March, you have to know what you are going to do so that you can get involved either in a free agent quarterback, or you are doing your due diligence with one of these draftable quarterbacks who will be in the range for you to go get based off of your draft position. So it is hard to imagine that the Jets will run it back with Aaron Rodgers because of this regime change, because of how poorly he has played this year. But no one is saying for certain that they won't. run it back with Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, they're only one game out of the worst record in the NFL, but as of right now, it looks like only 2 quarterbacks could be viable for a top 5, top 10 pick in next year's draft. Jonathan Jones joining us as we get the breaking news from JJ that the Jets have fired general manager Joe Douglas. You can see JJ and the rest of the crew on NFL Today Sundays at noon Eastern time on CBS. It was fun seeing them out there at Orchard Park in Buffalo this past weekend. This weekend, back in studio.